Tyrone, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. Thank you for extending the invite.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being here. I feel like I know you. I've been watching you for a long time here in the industry. I've been listening to the podcasts that you've been on, the podcasts that you've been hosting, been following you on Twitter. We've just sort of met each other in passing, but now I think we've got an opportunity here to really spend some time and just dig into all the different things that you're doing here. So really looking forward to having some time here today to spend with you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It's a blessing.
And on my end as well. So where I'd like to start is one of the reasons why I started this podcast is I have a belief, and I think a lot of other people do as well, that there's just some massive changes taking place with our economic system right now. Mm-hmm. And we've got all of this money that's being injected into the economy, not just in the United States, but all over the world. We've got all kinds of discrepancies that are happening in terms of a lot of this money is creating a lot of wealthy people. A lot of the assets that wealthy people invest in are going up in value. Yet at the same time, we've got a lot of people who are being hurt by this system. And I can't think of anybody better than you who really understands both sides of this situation in terms of you understand the economic system, you understand what's going on there, you understand how it's helping some people and how it's hurting other people. And so that's really what I want to explore with you today. And I'd love for you to just start off with some of your thoughts on what's happening with the system, how it's benefiting people and how it's hurting people. And then we can dig into what are some things that we can do to help the people that it's hurting, and where does some of this new technology fit in to give these people access to the system?
Yeah. So as you said, I'm very passionate about this, and it's something that it is important for me to leave a legacy of change on the financial services, system and infrastructure by being a voice for the voiceless. And I like to get very granular with this into the weeds, because seeds are cheap, right? But the soil is barren and the soil is very expensive, and that's where the majority of people are in this country, right? To the tune of 145 million working poor. This was before COVID. So I think one of the things for me where I bring perspective to this, where I like to focus, is what I like to call financial redlining. Our financial system wasn't set up for those that are at the bottom, right? And growing up in an unbanked home, I became very familiar with the alternative financial system, money orders, check cash in places, payday loans, things like that, where the folks are forced to operate in a system that allows them access to their money right now. Yes, there's a cost to that. But if I am struggling to meet my rent or make ends meet or feed my children, I need access to my money now. That's one layer of it. And there's multiple layers in that one point. The second point is, let's just talk about, we don't have a real-time payment system in this country, right? So if I put money in the bank, that money's not going to settle for 3 to 6 days. If I get paid Friday and I'm going to be evicted Sunday and I need that money to settle, that money doesn't clear until Monday or Tuesday, I'm evicted. My family is on the street. I know what that's like personally. And there are so many people in this country that would be helped immediately from a real-time payment system, where our government says, it's funny, they named it FedNow, will be launched in 2023 or 2024. That's the second part. The third part, when you look at what is happening in this country, again, between the haves and the have-nots, 1.6 trillion in wealth created since COVID for the top 9 million people falling into poverty. That dislocation is based on a lot of different things. There was a study that came out that showed that those that were considered financially savvy and literate before COVID sustained themselves better than those that were financially illiterate before it. Don't think we needed research for that, but here's what this tells me. We live in a capitalist society where the language is money. If you do not speak money, then you are doomed to a life of struggle in America, where a capitalist society is set up for those who speak the language of money. Now, notice I didn't say good investors. I didn't say good savers. I didn't say good business people. I said those who speak the language of money. That is all of those things and more. So there are so many people walking around who don't speak the language. So if I drop you into a foreign land and you need food and water and you don't know how to ask for those things, you can do this, or you can point to your mouth and you may get some crumbs. You'll never thrive. It's the same thing here. Children can start picking up financial concepts at 3, but yet we don't have a robust financial infrastructure and educational resources for our children. So they grow up in a country constantly pointing at their mouth for crumbs in a financial system that didn't arm them to succeed. Even more so amplified when folks, right? This morning I woke up, somebody hit the Powerball in Maryland, God bless them, $730 million, right? What's the time frame on those who go broke right after they hit the lottery? Athletes, entertainers, so on and so forth, right? Some of those living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of those folks are people making 6 figures. What is this telling us? These people are financially illiterate. They don't speak the language of money. And I end on this by saying, like I always tell my mentees, I tell family and friends, I tell our folks, right? Folks in our business, whenever I speak, the truth is this, right? And a mentor told me this a long time ago, Tyrone, there's only 4 things you ever do with money that the wealthiest, the richest, the most savviest people who speak money know. You make it, you grow it, you protect it, you transfer it. Anything else, somebody's trying to sell you something. Now, there's caveats in between those, but he was like, those are the basic 4. If I can teach you this, you'll get yourself out of, poverty, and you'll be able to pull your family out as well. And I'm like, man, that is super powerful. So all of those things combined, for me, the way I look at this are really, because they're systemic issues. Those are hundreds of years in the making. We're not going to fix that overnight. The structural issues we can fix. Right. And in this business, we could fix $17 billion of marketing financial services, less than 1% on education. Come on, folks, what are we doing? Right. So there is a change here, and which is why we'll get to this, which is why I say Bitcoin could go to 0 tomorrow. I don't care. What I do know is that Bitcoin was the accelerant to force all financial folks around the world, central banks, everyone, the largest asset managers to go, wait a second. Instant settlement, right? Immutability, censorship, right? All these things that they never really thought about, and having money native to the internet and what that meant for peer-to-peer, peer-to-pool, all of the, they weren't even thinking about that. So if that's all Bitcoin did, congratulations, Satoshi. So there's a lot to it, but that's the groundwork and framework of what I use to go out and fight for the people at the bottom. And there's a lot to that, but I won't burn your ears up with that here.
Okay. So we have a new president. We have President Biden. Congress and the president are talking about $2 trillion of new economic relief, stimulus, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Let's just say we live in an alternate universe and Tyrone Ross is the new president of the United States. And you've got all the power that goes along with the presidency. What would you do? You've talked about we need to speak the language of money. We talk about we need to help people that are economically disadvantaged right now. What are some things that we could do if we had President Ross? What are some, whether they're policies or what can we do? But what
here's what I would do. Here's what I would do in my first 100 days. Day 1, we would spend at least $100 billion. And again, I made that number up, but they make numbers up for other stuff too. So I'm gonna start at 100 billion. Reinvigorating our financial system that is set up and geared and structured with our educational system in this country. Meaning, day 1, every state must require financial education to be taught in schools, starting at elementary school. It's first thing. Second thing, baby bonds or something very similar to that at a certain level for children born into poverty in certain zip codes in this country. Third thing.
Okay, well, hang on. So baby bonds, explain that.
Baby bonds, and again, maybe I should call them Bitcoin bonds, but basically when a child is born, they would get an account, right? And that account would be opened in their name, and it would have, whatever. Let's just call it Bitcoin and bonds and stocks or whatever, right? The U.S. index fund, whatever we call it. A child would get that $2,000, right? Since that's the big number now. Every child born, right, to a family in certain zip codes or certain income levels would get that. Next thing I would do is I would institute a community-based czar. Could be one person or three, don't know, that is responsible for being on the ground floor, proximate in every community in America. Now, maybe we segmented, maybe there's 4 of them or 5 of them all across the country. So we know what the people are thinking and feeling and stressing with middle America. So we know what the people are thinking and stressing about rural America, inner cities, so on and so forth. That's the third thing. Fourth thing, what I would also do is make sure that once we've started to build the infrastructure in our schools, we started to make the financial system and access more accessible. We started to build on the community level to make sure we are making sure people, again, have access and understand affordable housing, all these other things. The next thing I would do is make sure that every American that is eligible and are using social services, again, understand TAMF, SSI, WIC, the earned income tax credit. These are all things that I would focus on in my first 100 days to make sure the majority of Americans are getting that met. Now, there's this issue of income inequality, right? And we talk about inequality, but equity. No one wants to talk about equity because inequality means it's just not equal. We're going to let everybody see the game. Equity means everybody gets the same view. I would focus on equity in financial services to make sure, again, whether we are looking at furthering the advancement of the accredited investor rules so that those that don't have access to these private funds and private deals and all of these things get access, so that the half of America who do not own equities get a way to own equities, so that we start to make sure that when programs like the PPP is laid out, that money has a purpose, plan, and is effective in a protocol for making sure what does that sound like? Crypto, right? To make sure that money is distributed timely, no more debit cards sent in the mail, no more checks, post office banking, Walmart, Google, others that want to, they touch the majority of the people, right? In this country, 53% of the people that shop at Walmart make $50,000 or less. Walmart has tried to become a bank 3 times. I know there's people watching and saying, oh, well, their motivations. We don't have time to address people's motivations yet. We have to get this in place, and then we will make sure we hold those people accountable. Post office banking, right? Some of the largest corporations in this country being responsible for making sure that, yes, you're going to take from people, but you're going to put back into the communities as well. Not necessarily through a tax redistribution, but a focus on making sure that you are leading, building, constructing infrastructure for people all over the country, not just on the elite edges, not just your friends and family, but for everybody. So that's what I would do. And then probably the last thing that I would do is, I'm not the big UBI guy, but what I would love to see is a creation of a social fund, right? And I'm not going to run from the term social, where, fine, taxes are a big issue in this country. And I would invite the 10 richest people in this country. Say, we're going to create a social fund for America. Here are our top 5 most, pressing issues. Child hunger. The greatest population of hungry people in this country are children. Let's start there. Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, right? What do you guys think of putting money into this fund? We won't tax you. You put it into this fund. We're going to make sure that, again, we have this czar, person responsible for making sure that it is for this cause and this cause only until we eradicate it. We will have 5 of those. Goes into the fund. You have, your advisors or whatever oversee it. But we are going to take the 5 greatest causes in this country. With your help, government will put in as well. And we will make sure that we eradicate these things. That's what I would do in my first 100 days. Me personally, like that would be my sole focus. We'll get to everything else. That's why you hire a cabinet and all those other people. But I would make sure that I'm truly a president for the people, right? By the people in my first 100 days. And those would be the big things that I do. And of course, I don't need to get into that, but there would definitely be a heavy focus on, the power of cryptocurrency, distributed ledger technology, and blockchain.
So as soon as you decide to run for president, let me know, because I want to put my hat in the ring to be your campaign manager.
Deal.
Okay. No,
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Well, I'm serious. I mean, I've listened to you enough, and just hearing you talk today, I mean, you've got such an incredible and important message. And I know you've got a lot of different platforms that you have here, but there's also a national platform, whether in politics, for example, because a lot of stuff can get done through politics.
True.
So you've probably thought about that, but I'm just kind of putting that seed out there again. So if you're ever running for political office, let me know. And I'm sure there's a lot of other folks out there too that would be right behind you there as well. So let's dig into some of these. So you've outlined a great first 100 days as President Ross. So this first one, you said financial education in school. And I know I've heard you talk about financial literacy, but it's like, no, we're not going to talk about, how do you buy a stock? How do you buy a bond? It kind of goes before that. So tell me about this financial education. What do people need to know? What are the early things they need to know prior to, like, oh, do I buy Tesla or do I buy Apple?
Great question. And it's funny, not to plug this, but it was why I started my Learn to Money series, right? From a tweet. I'm like, we need to change the way people are learning about money. So I think what I've learned traveling all across the country, going to speak in some of the poorest places in America, is that folks don't even understand the difference between a checking and savings account, a money market, a CD, right? A stock, a bond, all these other things. So we have to get granular, literally get people to understand. The Treasury said this themselves on their site. If there were people during the first stimulus that got debit cards and threw them out because they don't know what the Treasury is. They don't even know what the Federal Reserve, what is this? It's fake. We all get these fake credit card things. They threw them out. That is a failure of the system, right? So we have to make sure that children learn early, right, about our forefathers and everything else, but just learn about the beginning of banking in this country, the beginning of the Federal Reserve and what money is, where money comes from, how it's produced, the different forms of money. Every kid should start to learn this very early. Now, what we need to do is, based on where folks are in their communities, right? 70% of the Black community don't even live near a bank branch. So what is a bank? What is that? What does it mean to be banked? What does it mean to utilize all of the services that a bank provides? Safety deposit boxes, loans, small business loans, right? Let's look at that. SBA loans, PPP, how do I go get a loan? All of these things. So I feel like even so far as folks filling out these forms and going, well, what is a maiden name? What are these things that you require of me to have an account? That's one. Now we are trying to focus on a digital divide. So we need online literacy. So people say, well, listen, we're going to teach you about banking, but now we have to teach you about what banking is now in the 21st century, on your phone, on apps, web portals, how to connect these things. People don't know that. My parents do not use those things in ATM because it's, let me go to the teller. And the teller knows me, knows my face. I'm going to get the money in my hand here. Here's the other thing. Very important that there's one half of the country that doesn't understand how the other half lives. As a leader, you have to understand how all people live. Cash, literally physical cash, is a boon to people who are underserved and cannot operate again inside of the financial system, which is funny with the Bitcoin argument. No, the function is cash. The thing about it is and I want to make it about that. But the ability, if I walk up to you and hand you $5, that's instant. I don't need to know who you are. You don't need to know me. I handed you $5. That's the beauty of Bitcoin, but it's just on the internet. Stay there. But I think we need to focus on those that predominantly use cash. how they operate with cash. It's very important that we make sure that there is infrastructure for these people to operate until we can pull them into our new 21st century system, which also means and the beauty again of cryptocurrencies is that once we get you to jump over the old system into the new system, we have no choice but to teach you about the old one, because there's a bridge there. There's an on-ramp, so to speak, of taking you from the old world into a new one. So I definitely feel like once we do that and we are aware of, all right, there are people who just simply cannot rely on our current financial system, the way it is set up, whether it's not having access to capital markets, being underserved, not being educated, being taken advantage of by alternative financial services. We have a major problem. There's a lot of leakage, right? And then also another big thing is once you start to get into the communities, there's individual issues, and this is just the truth that people need to understand. There is racial issues here when you're talking about the money issues in the Black community versus white communities, versus tribal communities, versus Southern communities, versus Northern communities. If only 10% of 8th grade Black and girls can read at level in the 8th grade, what am I telling them about the Federal Reserve for? I have to make sure, me personally, I have to make sure these Black boys can read. These little girls can read so that when I do want to talk to you about Tesla, you know what I'm talking about. So there are structural issues, systemic, as I mentioned. So until we get proximate to the individual issues, privates, those that, again, have all of the resources to send their kids to private schools and tutors and all these things, understanding that poor is a condition, not a color. You start to realize that people are siloed in their ability to get access. We have a responsibility as a country to make sure everyone has access. What happens after that? You're always going to have haves and have mores. That's fine. Haves and have nots is an issue. So we have to make sure that everyone has access, equity of access, right? And then once they have equity of access, we layer on the education. My 3 E's I always talk about: exposure, education, empowerment. I cannot educate you or empower you until I've exposed you. There's a reason why you go to any inner city, right? And my mother still does it to this day, on a weekend, that you will see the post office packed. Why? Because folks have bills to pay and they still go to the post office for money orders. I just posted this on Twitter. My mother still goes. I finally got her to get Cash App, right? But she still uses money orders. Why is that? We need to figure out why that is. So I know why. I just, again, those that run this country don't. So when we start to figure out those things, and people that use, all of these different services that are out there just to simply get by, right? And there's so many types of different loans, right? People borrowing against their cars and vehicles and all these different ways that people try and make a living in this country beyond work. And we didn't even get into wages and inflation and all those other things. And I'll end on this note, just to sum in your point. I've been doing a lot of talks now talking about 25% of all the money ever been created has been created in the last 9-10 months. We know that. Me and you, I can say that to you. You interpreted that. You speak the language of money. Go say that to somebody on the street and they're going to go, what? You're talking about? No idea what you mean. That's a problem. If I also say to somebody on the street, and I've been doing a lot of these talks on Instagram and Facebook because, again, you're just screaming at the choir on Twitter. I said, if I told you guys money is cheap right now, what does that mean to you? And they go, what, money is cheap? No idea. That's a problem, because that means, oh, maybe I should rush and refi. Maybe I should put my, move some of my cash into, right, take on a little bit more risk. All these other, they don't even know to make the steps to survive in a capitalist society. Again, that is, the government is saying, hello, we're making it really easy for you to go turn your dollar into two. But if people don't know to answer that call, that's our fault, because we speak that. We're fluent. We know what that means. We're not getting that to people. So we need to go early. Like I said, children can start learning financial concepts at 3. By 7 or 8, it's set. And I can tell you, from that age, I knew nothing but stress when it comes to money. It was scarce. that scarred me for life. I had to undo all of this. It wasn't until I started working on Wall Street where I was like, I have to change. I'm no longer poor, but I have a poverty mindset. I got to switch that off to one of abundance, right? So that's a very hard thing to do. So there's PTSD, there's cultural issues, right? I also grew up in a Pentecostal home where, again, money is not to be this thing that you flaunt and you grow. It's you give something to God, you make your needs are met, no more. That's cultural, that's religious. There's a lot there. So we can't just act as if, people all over the country just operate with money the way the elites do. That's not fair. So we need to, again, equity of opportunity to learn about money. That's what I would focus on.
So we clearly have huge problems in society. All the things that you're just talking about here are huge issues. We've only got one Tyrone Ross. We don't have the technology yet to clone you 1,000 times or 10,000 times. So from a practical standpoint, what can people do at their local level? And are there organizations around the country that people can plug into that are on the ground trying to solve some of the issues that you're just talking about here?
I love that. And I always love that question. And I love that you said local. We have to start where our feet are. It's just too big. The country's too big. We can't rely on the government anymore. They basically said, listen, you guys are on your own for the most part until we replace people in those positions that can then funnel down, not just throwing crumbs over the fence. Here's 600, but also infrastructure, empowerment, resources continually. So the first thing is locally, I don't understand why there isn't more of a focus on getting into the Board of Education and some of these school systems to put the focus more on educating children about money. Board of Education, youth sports. I'm having a conversation with this app company now. They have 1 million kids on their app, way more than 1 million, but I'm just saying million. Basketball, and they're looking to institute some type of financial education for these kids. I love that. Why isn't Pop Warner, Little League, AAU programs, whatever? It should be fundamental part of it. Look, young man, you're tall, you're lanky, you got a jump shot. You ain't gonna be LeBron James. But in the event you are, we're gonna arm you to have a nice jump shot and a nice bank account. Here's how we're gonna do that. And then we're also gonna give you the processes by which, and here's the key here, to funnel that information through your legacy, your family. It's a repeatable process that you can write down that you can give to your kids and your kids can give to theirs, and so on and so forth. Which is also something that I think should come along with those baby bonds. Should be, there was an interview that a woman, she was BNY Mellon, I can't think of her name now, Christine something. She did an interview with Barry Holtz. She gave 5 things that they do with every wealthy family. There should be a card that should be inside of a birth certificate or whatever that they give to the family. Here are the top 5 things we think that you should focus on to make sure you give your child the best success at life. Savings plan, financial plan, estate plan, right? All these, every family should get that in America. Day one. If you have questions, the local whatever has partnered with our hospital to give you a free consultation the minute you get the baby social security number so that you can set up an account for them. Why isn't this a thing? Easy. Hospitals, Little League, churches, in local communities, Board of Education. Now we're building this community web of, I go to church, I hear it. I go to Little League, I hear it. I was born with it. I go to, this little community. It's always there. It's funny. Again, it's like the 2 fish in the water and then, hey, how's the water? And they're like, water, what is that? So if kids just grow up with it, and it's everywhere, there's never going to be like, not this money thing again. And this, oh God, now I got my 401k. It's from the time you were born, the hospital said, from the government to make sure that you have this, right? And then, so I would make sure, again, just Little League in people's communities, right? Supporting local organizations that may be doing anything. And the truth is, Steve, that's not a lot. We need to build these things. Someone needs to just go inside of their community, say, hey, I'm a financial advisor. I'm gonna take on 5 families I wouldn't normally take on, right? We just have to think outside the box here locally. That's the first thing. On a bigger scale, opportunities like this to share this message with you is profound. WallStreetBound.org is a wonderful organization that takes kids from the inner city, literally arms them with the tools to be back office folks, traders, whatever, like literally teach them all about Wall Street, helps them get recruited, things like that. Equity. The other thing is, if you want to address the bigger problems, right, which is harder, and the things that I care about is, again, we have to make sure that why is their family, like, you know, the rate of internet access in homes in this country has gone negative in America. It's gone negative. Mobile, kids are doing homework on phones that sometimes lose service, that are sometimes cut off. Kids now are home, no Wi-Fi, no hardware. There's bigger issues here. We have to get into the soil. So go into a school like I do, and they bring me in to talk to the kids. I'm like, okay, great. Do you have student lunch debt? Because I do know, being a kid that was on the lunch line, that couldn't eat sometimes. If it wasn't for a lunch lady that saw me a little nervous in the corner, I wouldn't have eaten. God bless Ruth, wherever she is. All right, I'm here to talk to the kids, but let me go to see if there's any student lunch debt. 75% of school districts had student lunch debt before COVID. 75% of school districts in this country. I know for a fact that if you're hungry, you can't focus. Now imagine a 9-year-old child. That's disgusting. Second thing, go to the library. I know there are kids who cannot graduate. I've seen it. I've helped it in Rhode Island. Kids, a lot of kids, they had an extraordinary amount. When I went to visit that school, I was talking to the librarian. There were a bunch of kids who couldn't graduate because they owed books, fines on books. These kids could not graduate. Smart kids, work their butts off, homeless, whatever, staying in foster homes, can't graduate because they took out a book in middle school or whatever, couldn't pay it off. This is in local schools. We could all do this. And I always tell people, if you want to put your kids in the best school, you absolutely should. I'm going to do that for my nephews, but I'm not going to forget about the kids that can't and weren't born to an uncle like myself. Second thing. Third thing, while you're in that school, say, hey, all right, we student lunch debt. We actually took care of some of the fines and things in the library. Is there any way that we can endow the school? I'm connected to State Street Global or Carson Group or wherever. We want to endow the school. We want to come back every year, twice a year or 3 times, whatever, 4 times a year, once a quarter. Make sure that you guys have the resources that you need. We can't do this across the country with the type of money. And I'm just talking to financial services industry, by the way. We can't do that. Every conference that we go to, we can't make sure that we are bringing in, we are busing in kids locally who are living in poverty into that conference for one day to see Mr. Sandusky or Mr. Ross speak. If I see it, I can be it. And give those kids some swag and some tools. We can do that. So these are local things that we can do to energize people to do things locally. Look, wherever you are, right? If you are on a board somewhere, what can we do to be effective giving into the roots of the problem, not throwing seeds at the problem? So I think if we do that locally, and some of the organizations that I've spoken about, I think if everyone just focused on one, and this is what I call it, because we like to talk micro and macro, and micro giving, small, right next to you. We'll get to the macro stuff through things like this, of me talking to on your podcast and others. We'll get to that. But right now, we just need everybody. My mother always says, take care of your home first. And then you can go out and take care of others. So take care of your community first. Churches, schools, all these other things. Youth detention centers. We can't forget about those either. I was a probation officer before I started on Wall Street. We can't forget about those youth in youth detention centers, day schools, right? In our prisons. People may feel away, but it's just the truth. They're going to come back into society. I want that person that was given, a second chance to be armed financially so they don't feel like they got to go rob my niece or you or anybody else. Let's give them everything that they need. So when you're out, hey, we gave you everything you needed. Please don't do this again. So we can't forget about all corners here. And that's my whole thing. Regardless of zip code, regardless of what you've done in your life, regardless of who you were born to or who you went to school, we got to make sure there's equity, financial access, because it touches the core of all of the issues in this country. So I think if we do that, people start locally. That's the best way to do it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah.
You gave some great practical ideas. We can start locally. And I'm going to ask you this, and I'm guessing the answer is both, but I'm going to ask it anyway. More money or give of time? So if someone says,
Ooh.
"Hey, I want to do more here," do you start by saying, "Let me give money," and there's enough people out there that will do this, that are designed to do this, let's just say? I mean, we're all designed to do this, so that's probably not the right way to phrase it, but
Yep.
do we start by saying, "Hey, I've got money, I'm going to channel it to the right places because there's people in place to do that," or "I've got maybe not a lot of money, but I've got time, so I'm going to give my time. I'm going to do both"? Does it vary by location? Does it vary by the thing that you want to help out, whether they need more time of people or whether they need more money? Any thoughts on that?
So it's both, but I will say with this nuance. First thing is just give with your heart. And if you give with your heart, truly empathetically wanting to help, it will be more than enough. Because there are a lot of people giving now who don't care. They're just giving. Second thing I will say is every time I go to these schools, these social service programs, people who are working with foster children, just trying to help them find out when their birthday is because they can give these kids their first birthday, whether it's going into youth detention centers and children that have been battered, bruised, neglected, raped, and so on. They always say, "Tyrone, we need more money. We just don't, we need more money." And I'm like, and that always stuck with me because I knew, I was like, if I ever get money or I get around money, I'm going to let people know that. And I've started to do that. But here's the beautiful thing, the beauty in the struggle. There's always beauty in the struggle. Sometimes those that have time but not the money may have a skill like designing websites. Most websites, if you look at all of these social services programs, aren't well done. Websites are expensive. And the donate button is hard to find. Put it right in the middle, right? Beautifully designed, give here. So someone that has the time, talented web designer, help a local organization redo their website. Indirectly, you've helped them get more money because now it looks good. I feel, because here's the thing. Most people are like, I don't really, I'm not comfortable giving. And you go on a website, you're like, ooh, this looks sketchy. I'm not giving. Meanwhile, they doing the most incredible work. Perception is reality, as we know.
Yeah.
Helping with a website, things like that. So
yeah, no, I think that's such a great idea because you wouldn't normally think of that. It's like, yeah, I'm a web designer. And why don't I just offer some web development services exactly like you said? So yeah, I think we just need to be creative. All of us need to be more creative and give from the heart, as you were saying there. So, I appreciate that. Now, you've mentioned the word equity a number of times here. Tell me more about what you mean by that. And let me just give an example that I've heard. I mean, I'm going to use a football analogy. So I'm a middle-aged white guy, grew up middle class. So I'm born on the 20-yard line, the 30-yard line, the 50-yard line. There's other people who are born on the 10-yard line, the 5-yard line, the 0-yard line, 10 yards behind the goalposts at the back of the end zone. Is that kind of a way to think about it, or what do we do when we want to improve equity? I mean, how do we as people, what does that mean?
I will. Here's the first thing I think we need to do so people are more comfortable with equity, because they're not right now. It's easy to say equitable. Well, everyone gets a piece of the pie. Well, some people are getting bigger pieces than others, and then the people who really need to get a crumb. We need to stop damning privilege. We need to stop, making middle-aged white men who were born on third base feel bad about being third or, born on third base. My nephews are 2 and 3 and own more Bitcoin than most people who tweeting about it on Twitter. Their whole lives are set up now because of me. My nephews shouldn't be ridiculed for what they were born into. I worked my butt off to be able to provide that for them. And I'm sure somebody worked their butt off to provide where you started. Privilege needs to stop being damned in this country. I'm tired of it. That's the first thing. Nobody, white men, white women, black men, I don't care. I have privilege in this business being tall and a man. Do I lose some by being black? Yeah, but guess what? Imagine being a black woman. We all have some type of privilege. Acknowledge it and use it for good. Now we can start talking about equity. Once everyone realizes that they're not going to be attacked for their position in life, it's easier to say, all right, well, Steve was born on the 20-yard line. There were people that were born on the other 20-yard line. We are going to make sure that those folks, we're not going to start the game until everyone gets to the 20 where Steve is. Everyone starts there, right? If you were born on the goal line, you may have to move back. We're going to move some people. Everyone gets it to 20. Now, survival of the fittest. Everyone has an equity, right? Chance, equal shot to move your ball over the goal. And that's what equity is. It's just simply saying, again, I think there's a really good meme about this where you got, it talks about, equality, and it just has people looking at the ball game and the different levels. And then there's equity as everyone has the same, right? So this is kind of that same thing. So when you talk about that now people aren't getting upset saying, well, why is he getting more because he didn't? Well, because do you see where he started with? That's why. So we're giving them an equal view. They're not going to see it the same as you. They may not appreciate it as much as you. They may appreciate it more. We don't know. But that opportunity is going to give them a chance to improve their lot in life. And that's where we go with the equity of opportunity, right? Same thing with diversity and inclusion. Tired of it. Representation and equality. Again, there it goes. So fine, we want to hire a Hispanic male. Okay, great. Or we want to hire a black man. Great. Or we want to, whoever it is that you want to hire. There should be, or you just have a hire, and that's a better example. We want to hire a paraplanner. Great. May the best paraplanner win. But every group should be represented to have an equal shot at that paraplanner job, right? Diverse and inclusive, we still really haven't defined that. And we failed at it. We should let that go. And then say, like I get messages all the time, Tyrone, listen, we're a really right firm. We just want to be more representative in our hiring. Could you help us? Great, yes. Connection, my network is your network. I'm certain my network doesn't look like yours, Steve, right? So now if you reach out to me, now my network, which is going to be a lot more diverse, but more representative, more importantly, of what it is that you're trying to do. So I feel like if we move to representation and equality, and then we also move to equity of opportunity, then it's easier for people to make the argument and say, they bust in all those kids from the other side of the town, gave them all these other resources that they gave these kids. And the research shows that the kids who were, they still did better. I'm okay with that. But I do know this, because I'm an example. Those kids that were bust in were born with PhDs, poor, hungry, and driven. So those are probably people you don't want to compete against. There are too many examples like that of kids who were just giving an equity of opportunity excel, and people that were given an opportunity excel. So we just need to, another good example is Olympians, right? Like it's as an Olympian and someone who, that was my dream. There's no doubt talented gymnasts and sprinters and everything that will never get a shot. I was blessed. I was born in this country to get a shot. A lot of kids don't get a shot. Equity of opportunity. So that's really what I mean by that.
Yeah. And you talk about systemic things as well. And I just think about corporations who say, hey, we're going to hire college graduates, but they only recruit from Ivy League schools.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's like, well, there's no equity there. I mean, you got a certain group of people that are going to get into the Ivy League schools. So a simple thing could be, we're going to recruit at other schools that are not historically privileged white schools, for example.
Done. Easy. Yeah. That's it. But you just got to go there, or have a connection. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. So let's fast forward here a little bit, and let's say that we're in this alternate universe and we've made a lot of progress on the issues that we've talked about here. I've heard you say that Bitcoin is digital social justice. I'd like to hear from you, how does Bitcoin or Bitcoin with a capital B, like the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, how does that fit in to this idea of social justice? How does it fit into this idea of giving people access to the financial system? Because there's a lot of people who are in Bitcoin and crypto because of number go up. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money. Okay, fine. But there's other things. And I think this is what you really try and hit on. I would love for you to expand on that, because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't really see, and I'm going to put myself in that boat, exactly how Bitcoin gives access and how this can be a lifeline for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So before I start, I want everybody watching this, and hopefully it's 1 million people watching, we are all going to take off our first world privilege and we're going to put it right here, right? We're going to leave it right there. If you live in this country right now, more than likely you have access to multiple banking accounts, brokerage, investments, credit cards, multiple ways to pay, all these other things. We are a privileged few. And I'm going and here's how I would make the argument even more powerful. I'm not going to use the Argentina, Venezuela that everybody likes to throw out. We're going to keep it
Zimbabwe.
Here.
Don't forget
Zimbabwe is
Zimbabwe.
another one. Yeah. We're going to keep it right here in the good old US of A, land of the free, home of the brave, in the South Bronx, where 50% of the population are unbanked. Think about that for a minute. Unbanked. So you look at Bitcoin. One of the things that I got right away was, wait a minute. Because like most people, you live 2 lives of Bitcoin. You're showing it, this is dumb. And then you get it. And then you're like, oh, I wish I would have listened the first time. And I had a friend who kept pinging me. And he said, well, let me send you some. And he sent it to me and I saw it transfer and I saw the value transfer. I said, wait a minute. I got to pay attention to this because of how I grew up. I'm like, wait. So if back to what I was saying before, with the big B blockchain and what that allows, right? And people talk about, there's so many layers to this, but people talk about Bitcoin as a payment system and a monetary system, yes, but the technology of what it allows for people to send money to someone else instantly without identification. I think there's almost 14 million people in America that doesn't have ID. What? Yes, this is a thing. Also, you look at folks who are in this country, my dad being one, they come here, immigrants, and then need to send money back. The remittance market, $600 billion market that is growing to 1 trillion. Folks who work their butts off in the ability to send money overseas. Look at the cost of sending a wire right now. It's still $35 to $50. Look at the cost of using Western Union and all those other things when you send large amounts of money. And then the bank taking fees from you. And then the cost of being banked, right? 35 billion in overdraft fees. What this is about is how Bitcoin ushered in, one, right? Real time, right now, the ability to send someone else money. Powerful. 2, if you have internet and a phone, you have access to Bitcoin, but the ability to get Bitcoin and turn that into dollars if you need actual cash. Hello, Cash App, providing bank accounts, routing numbers, debit cards, and access to Bitcoin, the ability to withdraw and take off. Where is Cash App's greatest penetration? The South. Where are the most unbanked people in this country? The South. Where is financial literacy at its lowest levels in this country? The South. That's point. The other thing is this. All right, Tyrone, well, you need a phone and you need internet. You go to most inner cities right now that are moving this direction, there are Bitcoin ATMs. And people, again, will say, well, what about the premium? Well, here's what I do know. There's a premium for everything in life when you are ignorant and you start to get old. I was the first in my family to finish high school to go to college. You know what happened when I walked on a college campus? I got kicked out. I paid the price for being first, but I got access. So what a Bitcoin ATM allows me to do is get Bitcoin with no phone or no internet. There are Bitcoin ATMs that allow that. It gives me a paper wallet. Now, once I go on to something like Paxful or local Bitcoins, and then I can convert that Bitcoin into local currency, powerful, dollars if I need to. And then I can turn those dollars into whatever it is that I need to do. Last point, back to Paxful and local Bitcoins. You want to know what the most powerful stable coin, the biggest stable coin, the most impressive thing in financial services right now is? A gift card. A gift card. If you look at folks that use gift cards who are at the bottom, who use gift cards, prepaid cards, massive uses of prepaid and gift cards, massive. But if I go to Amazon and I buy a gift card, I can go on to Paxful, take the money from that gift card, buy Bitcoin with that gift card, take that money that I bought Bitcoin with. They then are the same market maker that allows me to convert that Bitcoin into whatever I want. I think there's 350 currencies that you can convert on there. Who's going to be convinced that that technology, not the little b number, that technology is not impressive? And here's the beautiful thing. There are, Ray Paxful talks about this. There are situations where the price in Bitcoin vary, countries where it varies, where sometimes folks capture the delta, the difference in converting to their currency based on the price of Bitcoin there. And they get to keep that difference. This is massive. I will put the bow tie on this by saying, we lack a real-time payment system in this country. The estimates were years ago that if we instituted a real-time payment system the same time that the UK did, it would have saved $100 billion. $100 billion. I'm going to go back to my school program.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's your 100 billion right there.
There's my 100 billion right there. Real-time payment system. You could put your money in the bank and do it now. What I need people to focus on with Bitcoin, again, here in America, why I say it's digital social justice, it does not care color, creed, denomination, zip code, broker, no broker, golf membership. It does not care. It is just a powerful technology that is forcing our antiquated, slow-ass government to say, wait a minute, the Stable Act or FinCEN or all these other things, good or bad, no matter how you feel about it, Bitcoin was the accelerant. So now we're putting the focus on people now that we never focused on before. Post office banking is it's bubbling up. FedNow bubbling up. Stable coins bubbling up. Why? Because stable coins take everything else out. Without Bitcoin, you don't even get to stable coins, because people were saying, wait, we need stable coins because Bitcoin is too volatile. But what came first, the chicken or the egg? So without stable coins, which again, stable coins were around, gift cards before Tether, right? And USDC and all of these, that focus now says, okay, well, this is really powerful technology. And then you get Libra. And then you have all these other things that come out of what Bitcoin did. So again, if it was the gravity that pulled the whole world forward to saying, this is what we need to focus on. And that is extremely powerful, which is why I say it's digital social justice. And it's not only doing it here, it's doing it for the 1.7 billion underserved, because I'm not saying unbanked anymore. I think that is demeaning now because it doesn't explain the full scope of the problem. The underserved all over the world. That is incredibly powerful. Two more things, and I promise I'll shut up on this. I've been going into the Black community for 19 years, Steve, trying to get our communities to invest. You guys got to get in the market. No, I'm not doing it. I don't trust them. It's not for us. You guys got to invest. It'll help. No, it's not for us. All right. 2017, more Black people came to me about investing than I've ever experienced in my whole life. Now, some of these people are investors. They're doing real estate. They are, they're in stocks now. They're doing bonds. Simply because they were able to get sucked into the vortex of what Bitcoin meant. And they wanted to learn about everything else now. Powerful. This is a group that the SEC with their investor.gov site could never get to come in. That's powerful. I don't care how you feel about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin did that. And this is the last point. And probably the most important thing I will ever say as far as this podcast goes. When you look at overall our financial system, when you look at the divide in this country between those that have and those that don't, when you look at the ways in which we've tried unsuccessfully to pull people into markets and capital markets that have always been there. There's only one app on your phone, on your iPhone, you don't need to download. That's the stock app, because Apple knows that people that buy their phones speak money. Of all our attempts to get people to pay attention, and sometimes the way we get people to pay attention is not how we'd like, but we just need them to pay attention. The gravity that Bitcoin pulls of attention, whether it goes up or down, makes people refine their arguments to continue to expose the differences of what I'm trying to fight for. And it's a beautiful thing to see on Twitter. When it goes up, oh, the carnival barking and the cheerleading and this, and it's this, and it's that, and there's a lot of people don't really know what you guys are talking about. And that chasm grows, so I can poke right in the middle, goes, this is where we need the education. And then when it goes down, people talk about risk tolerance and diversification and making sure that you understand the difference between what store value is versus, I'm like, look at this beautiful education for people who just don't know. If we could just capture Twitter and put that in every school and say, these are the things, just the stuff in the middle, not the stuff at the top and bottom, we would educate millions. That's the power of Bitcoin. So that's what I choose to focus on. And that's why I say, so long as that social construct, the battling, the back and forth or whatever, the more people refine their arguments of why it's great or it's bad, or Paul Tudor Jones or all these different people, they just keep wringing out the juices for me to say, this is exactly what people don't know. Store value, reserve, cash, currency. What's the difference? Dollar, fiat? The hell is fiat, right? So all of these arguments just make it easier for me to go, thanks guys, right? I catch them all and then I go, ta-da, here you go. So for multiple reasons that I went into, and this could be a whole nother podcast, that's why Bitcoin is digital social justice, the cultural, the financial, the social, like all of these different ways that it pulls people into something that they would have never paid attention to before. And that's what you and I love, is investing, capital markets, right? The ability to turn our hard-earned money into assets. So that's why I'm so ardent about it. And I try and, throw my hat in the ring every once in a while. People, I don't care about the price. I care about what this is doing for people at the bottom.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that, because I think it really helps elaborate on just the complexity of Bitcoin and blockchain in terms of, again, a lot of us come to it because the price goes up. It's a cool technology. It is an investment. It's a speculative investment. But there's this whole other aspect to it that you just so eloquently described here that I think a lot of people don't really pay too much attention to. But you obviously do. Now everyone listening to this will, and I certainly will as well. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
I love a lot of things about you, Tyrone. And one of the things I love is that you don't just talk about this stuff, you do this stuff. And so you've got Onramp Invest, where you're the CEO of this company, which, yes, it has a profit motive, but I think there's also a social justice motive, for lack of a better phrase, in it as well. Tell me about Onramp.
So Onramp, if you look at the back of the shirt, it says investing for the rest of us, right? And it's that for a reason. So we have a lot of things we're going to do with Onramp. One of the things that I realized, right, there's this big blue ocean out there of financial advisors who don't have access right now, as I experience, to work with clients who want access to cryptocurrency, and especially Bitcoin initially. And people are like, well, Tyrone, what the hell does that have to do with social justice? Stay with me. So basically what Onramp aims to be right now is the Plaid of crypto, right? To allow financial advisors to model, plan, build, performance reporting, everything right inside their existing platform. We're not a TAMP, we're not a fund, we're not an SMA. We are data integration inside an advisor's current workflow to allow them access to the markets to be able to interact with Bitcoin the same way they would with Apple. End of story. What we are going to do as part of Onramp, a lot of folks don't know, we have a really kick butt mobile app that we will launch at some point that will allow folks access through education. So one of the things that we are, for example, like Robinhood, right? We don't really need to be 100 million users like Robinhood. We want a small amount of users that are going to get educated as they move through our app. You will not get access to link an account or do anything until you pass these modules. And as you pass these modules, you will get access to be able to start to link things slowly. And then when you link it, there'll be a small amount. And then we want to use AI and machine learning and all these things to give people data on their behavior and their psychology around money. That's down the pipeline. But right now we have to, work on this to be able to fund that. So that's where my head is at with it. So whether financial advisors like it or not, they will be funding the future of financial education in this country by using Onramp. So that's really all we are right now. We are closing a small round of funding now. We have some really neat folks that invested in that I'm excited about to announce. We just announced Lex Sokolin this week as an advisor and investor. We have a few other folks. So I'm herding cats now to get this round of funding closed. Then the next thing will be for us to put our heads down and launch this. And the beautiful thing about it as well, that one thing I care about most is education, and we're providing education as well. We put out a Bitcoin compliance guide to advisors. We're going to provide research. We're going to give them data, because as well as I do, one thing financial advisors love is data, right? So we want to give them all the data, and you use it to plan for your clients, right? Like you would normally. So we'll be providing a lot of education, doing a lot of different things through Onramp as well. So we're excited. Some really cool partnerships, some really cool investors and advisors and stuff that we'll be announcing along the way. But it's for the advisor, by the advisor, to wink, wink, fund some of the really cool things that we're going to be doing to boost financial education in America. So we're excited.
And if an advisor is listening to this and they want to be part of this, do they just go to your website and join the wait list, or what do they do?
Yeah, go to Onramp Invest, and there's a sign up there. So you can get, exclusive access to some of the things that we are putting out on our wait list. We worked with Interaxis, who I know you know well, Adam Blumberg. They just put out a certification for advisors. So we are going, by the time this runs, will be announced that, anyone that is on the Onramp wait list gets 50% off their certification program, which is cool. And yeah, our wait list is north of $200 billion now. It's insanity. Growing by the day. And, there's insatiable demand for advisors to learn. And I will end on this. One of the things that I realized, I hung my shingle out as the crypto advisor guide 6 years ago. It was 2015. And my mentor was like, "You're an idiot. Like, this is dumb." Right. And I realized over time, even as I started to learn, and I left Merrill, went independent in 2017, and things have obviously picked up. I literally left right as things were going nuts in 2017. But one thing that I realized was that there was just, the worlds didn't talk. There wasn't education. It was very hard to work with clients who had this stuff away from you or whatever. And we are building every feature, everything that we are doing is built with the financial advisor in mind, the financial planner, the investment manager, right? Those that are worried about compliance and regulatory issues and qualified custody. I know it, I'm familiar with it, and I'm keeping that in mind as we start to build. And like I said, we also have some really cool things that a call I had today around cash management solutions, so advisors could finally get yield, right? Another one of my mentors says yield always sells. So we're working on something for that, as well as we have some really, really cool ideas, like I said, for the mobile app as well. So we're working on a lot, but we're just trying to keep our heads down, focus on the MVP here. But we're incredibly excited. Advisors need it. And again, it's not about, I get the ETF stuff, I get the SMA stuff. I love what Eaglebrook was doing, and I love what blockchain, and I love all of that, right? We need to get advisors in the pool here. But I think one of the things is missing, again, is that piping, that infrastructure to make it all talk. And that's what Onramp is looking to do.
Awesome. Well, Tyrone, I appreciate you sharing that. It's super exciting what's going on there with Onramp, and I could talk to you for hours here. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show sometime down the road and explore some more topics here. In the meantime, people obviously go to Onramp Invest, follow you on Twitter. It's easy to find you there as well. So super appreciate you spending some time here, and best of luck to you with what's going on there with Onramp and all the other endeavors that you're focused on here.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. And if you made it to this point in the program, I would implore you, please go to No Kid Hungry and make a small donation so that we can make sure that 1 in 4 children in this country do not go to bed hungry tonight.
All right.
I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.